as a Latina woman, as an immigrant, as being undocumented, growing up undocumented, knowing that the opportunities that I'm now currently having access to is a very big part into my exposure into the field of science and math, and having that representation in those mirrors that I was able to see myself in, that allowed me to pursue or even have the goal or the vision of continuing a pathway in that.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Jimen Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of I Have Something to Say. Today we have as a guest Ana Vaca, and she's a math whiz. I mean, a math educator. That's like your jam, and I admire it. Ana, because I'm not the math person in the room. I mean, I know how to count my money, but that's basically it. But I love how she's passionate about creating equitable classroom experiences, encouraging students of all backgrounds, right? And with a special focus on the migrant community and on undocumented children, right? To ensure that they have the access that they need to really cultivate, right? This love for math and to really insert themselves in anything STEM. And actually, that's how we met, through our mutual friend Navas, just a couple of months ago. And it's just been great to learn about your story. And I'm so glad that you're joining us today, Ana.
Well, thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to walk into this space and be able to share a little bit of my story with you. And I'm excited for all the topics we're going to get to talk about today.
Yes, absolutely. So my first question is, why math? I mean, you know, what drew you to math? And I know because that's your inclination, but I'd like to know, at what age did you know, right, that you were a math whiz and that this was the path that you were going to take?
So first of all, your line of "I'm not a math person," I think is like the number one thing that you hear when you hear someone, like you tell someone that you're a math educator. But for me, I don't know if I was always really aware that I was good at math. It was kind of like one of these teachers a teacher that I had in the same school district that I teach in. She was my fourth grade teacher, and she just believed in me. And she saw something special in me and recommended me for a pre-college engineering program. And so through her belief in me was where I was put into like all these different summer activities where I got to learn from engineers, where we got to explore different like labs, math and science labs. We took like extra math classes, extra writing classes to kind of continue to push us ahead of what we were learning throughout every school year. And so that was the first time where I was like, maybe I got something going on here in this math and science thing, right? Like that they placed me in these spaces, and it was kind of like a really big deal to get into it. You had to take a bunch of tests, you did an interview process, you had to send like all this paperwork about like your academic stuff, your teachers got interviewed. So it was a big deal where I was like, okay, maybe I got something going on here. And I was invited year and year again. So I actually did that from fourth grade up until
Oh,
my ninth.
wow.
Yeah, so it was at a really young
So we're
age.
talking like 8, 9 years old, right? More or
I must
less,
have
that's
been
fourth
9
grade.
or 10. I think it was more like 9 or 10. And I was doing engineering. We did environmental engineering, biomedical engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical, all the engineerings we got some exposure to. So actually teaching was not my first choice because I grew up in the engineering field. I was like, I'm going to be an engineer. And that was actually what I thought I was going to do. I was fortunate enough to also be picked to go to a gifted and talented school for the county. And my whole thing was like, I'm going to go to an engineering school. But then the last 2 years, we had to pick specializations where we got to do some like programs or got to get exposure for that specific field we were doing. And so naturally, I picked the class, which was computer animated design and engineering. So it
Mm.
exposed me to the programming that's very common for engineers. And as I was doing that, and we got assigned projects like engineers, we had to develop products. As I was doing that, I was like, I don't like this. Like it
Oh,
hit of like, like I have this skill, but I don't like it. I don't like this like
Mhm.
individual. I'm working on one project and just producing a product kind of thing. And it just had me thinking on like, so then what is my calling, right? What am I really
Mhm.
doing with these skills that I have? And I had connected with one of my high school teachers who had had a similar story. He thought he wanted to do engineering and landed on teaching. And so I had a conversation with him of like, so what do I do here, right? And he suggested teaching, and I had to think with my like sit and really think about what am I good at. And I realized like I've always done tutoring. Like even when I was
Mhm.
younger, I was like mentoring or tutoring other students. And so it hit me of like, maybe teaching is my calling. And then that's how I ended up joining a teaching program in my college. My major was just math. I was just going to do straight math and see what happened with that degree. But teaching came into the role, and I started doing both, and it was just instant of like, this is it. This is
Yeah.
me giving back, and that's just been what I've been doing since I started.
That's so great, right? That it was like magic, right? You
Yeah.
had the strength in math, but just needed that passion, the heart work, right? You needed to find how to combine that with your personality and with your wanting to support the community. And
Mhm.
coming also from Latino family, right? Your family's from Ecuador. You just know how important it is too, to expose children at an even younger age to all
Mhm.
of these resources and opportunities that normally you know
Yeah.
you're not exposed to. And so, having gone through that, how important is it really, do you see? And now, as an educator, right,
Mhm.
in the same, you're in Union City, right, on a school district,
Yes,
right?
city.
So now you're on the other side of it, right? How important it is to expose children, and how early do you think is it worth exposing them to math, science, right, and to all of these disciplines that sometimes we think, oh no, that's eso es demasiado, it's too advanced, right, they're too little, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely I in retrospect, I know that aside from all the obstacles that I encountered, as a Latina woman, as an immigrant, as being undocumented, growing up undocumented, knowing that the opportunities that I'm now currently having access to is a very big part into my exposure into the field of science and math, and having that representation in those mirrors that I was able to see myself in, that allowed me to pursue or even have the goal or the vision of continuing a pathway in that. And so, as an educator, being in that space now where I can also advocate for that or create
Hmm.
opportunities for that, it's really important for me to hold those conversations about like, just expose them, right? Like give them an opportunity, give them a chance. And math and science too can also sometimes be fields where um, we cannot have access to a lot of the information, test scores. There's a lot of conversations around like math and test and science scores being low
Hmm.
for marginalized groups. And a lot of it is the inequitable access, right? We don't have access to that exposure, to being challenged to those problem solving skills. And it's not that we can't, it's just sometimes other factors that play into how are we really giving opportunity for our students to engage in that, to be able to experience that, to be able to see themselves there, and to be able to identify themselves in those spaces.
Yeah, that they belong, right, and that they say, oh, and especially coming from families that are like, what is that? What is STEM? Right?
Mhm.
What does math? I mean, how can you even, right? Where's that going to lead to? Normally they say, teacher, doctor, not
Mhm.
even, right? Or just you got to work where I'm working at. As soon as you turn 16, vas para la fábrica, right? You're gonna go to the factory and help, to chip in. And so, those are some of the challenges. What are some other challenges that you experience and that you see continue, that are persistent, right? Because that's the thing. It's like, even though time passes, you've been an educator for almost a decade now, right? And people, she looks like she's 19, but don't get it twisted. She's been teaching for a hot minute already, right? And so,
9 years.
what do you see? Yeah, I know. So, what have you seen still, right? That still persists as challenges in our community to gain that access, right? An opportunity to be exposed to these disciplines.
I think a lot of the work that has to kind of change, and this kind of goes to your question of like what continues to exist, is the way in which we view math as a discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is, first of all, the mindset around math of like it's too hard, it's something that's only available to a select few people, and those few people are considered like you're a genius, right? That's kind of the stereotypical association with the subject of math. But really, like, what I think creates a bigger access and what can help us give access to more students in math and help change some of those challenges we see is thinking about math as like an ability for us to problem solve and like resource the skills we have and being able to then like problem solve, right? And I think we all have that innate brilliance in problem solving because it's also part of survival. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just like how do we highlight that within our classrooms in a way that actually celebrates our students' experiences and their inherent genius, like their cultural genius. Like think about, when you're making tamales, for example, right? Like that involves math and science. You're measuring stuff, you're making proportional relationships, all that stuff. Like that's beautiful cultural associations that maybe our students aren't getting a chance to be represented in their math classrooms. And so that creates a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of that like inaccessibility for the student to see themselves personally and be like, hey, this is part of me too, and I
Yeah.
the testing, sometimes the way that instruction happens, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, has a history of just kind of being like rote memorization and slowly
Mm-hmm.
changing because of all the work of all the educators that are doing to help change that and make it more like we're gonna lean in on all the brilliance available. But that's definitely one of the challenges I see, right? Like being able to make math that problem solving, that like project stuff where you're giving students the chance to be brilliant in it, to showcase what they're doing, to show their thinking, and celebrating that versus it being like you took a test, show me what you know, here we go, we're moving on to the next topic, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like the biggest challenge in the math classroom.
It's the application of it. It's almost like a translation service, right? So it's like you have to translate what how math is applied and what it looks like in real life, basically,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
so yeah, and so they're constant there and everything we do. There's applications to it, and so I think that that's really wonderful. And so, but you're not only just involved in the school districts, right?
No.
You're immersed in different, you call it side hustles, but it's not really that. I think it's just
Mhm.
right on full-fledged advocacy, right? You're in neck deep into just being showing up. And so
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about the different organizations that you're supporting and the immigrant-centered workshops, right, that you participate in, conduct, to really create those environments that fosters learning, access, and how do you say, stripping away, right, these misconceptions and these stereotypes that we latch onto and that really need to be exterminated, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been part of my work has been kind of a lot of that self-reflection and being able to see myself for my own experience and finding what I thought was, what excluded me from these spaces and realizing these are my strengths, right? These are actually my lived experience and my uniqueness is my strength. And now that allowed me to work with these awesome organizations. One of them is called Unbounded, and it's a nonprofit organization where we provide professional development to help dismantle some of the systemic racism that we see in education by promoting equitable educational practices. That includes making sure that we have grade level, first of all, right? Grade level content being shown to our students. making sure that it's engaging, that our students are actively participating in their academic process, that it's affirming, and that it's meaningful to them, where they can take their learning and really apply it to their lives so that they can feel empowered to advocate for themselves in these spaces.
Mm.
And then through that, I was also able to find schools, which really, like, both these organizations help merge my passions and, like, truly deeply what calls to my soul.
Mhm.
And schools, the beautiful part is we are a nonprofit organization that works to provide professional development, to ensure that schools are safe and inclusive spaces for immigrant, that's undocumented, mixed status students and their families. And so
Mm.
we really guide the educational spaces, the schools, to be able to, one, evaluate themselves around
Mhm.
educator preparedness, family engagement, and then safety within the school, on how they have policies or what they're doing to make sure that the parents feel welcome into the spaces, and that they're doing the things that their students need to be able to ensure that their academic and educational experience is also continuing to help them and support them through their unique needs. So
Mhm.
some of the things that we do is we go in to give workshops to the students about the access that they have to post high school opportunities, right? Secondary education or
Yeah.
other ways like entrepreneurship, or specific like state things that they have access to if they are undocumented or from mixed status families. And then we also provide workshops for the families, for the parents to be able to learn about, things like better parenting skills, right? Like
Mm.
the social emotional aspect of parenting skills, their access to taxpayer IDs so that they can make sure that they have some financial awareness, financial
Mhm.
classes,
Mhm.
nutrition, and access to like better food so that way that they can also be focused on their wellness. So it's a little bit of everything, and we make sure that
Yeah.
organizations, right, we're working both in the educational spaces where one is really targeted towards the academic concept of it, of like
Yeah.
this area, and I work very
Yeah.
specific math and the practices there. And then in schools is very like community based. Still
Yeah.
community based, where we're really trying to bridge relationships between the schools and the families and the outside organizations of the community, so we can create spaces that really like foster the well-being of the migrant community.
Yeah. That's really fantastic. I'm in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, that's stuff going on down there.
That's oh my God, Nina. I don't even know where to begin, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so to see, right, some other states that see the value, right,
Mm-hmm.
of the migrant community, that understand how bridging, right,
Oh,
these relationships between educators and the community, and really strengthening not
yeah.
just those pathways to academic advancement, but also those pathways to socioeconomic stability, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because it creates an environment where then they can really develop, right? The students can, if their parents are supported, if their parents are also advancing, right, then it
Mm-hmm.
just creates a whole community that is advancing together, and
Together, right.
elevating the potential, really, of
Yes.
these bright minds, right, that are in the community. Yeah. And
I love
so
when we do our workshops, right, with in schools where we have the parents, right? We're talking about topics that are really difficult to talk about in our
mm,
community, like mental wellness. And
yeah.
it's so nice to create a space where the students and the parents get to hear each other out. They get to like, listen a little bit to each other's perspectives and walk away with tools to help them
Hmm.
also like navigate some of their unique experiences. Like so like you said,
Yeah.
community is growing and leaning
Yeah.
in on other through that growth.
Yeah, because the thing is too, I mean, in we come, right, with all of our lived experiences, the migration experiences,
Mhm.
also, right, there all of these contextual factors that influence the way we think, right, and how we approach even opportunities. And so
Yes.
sometimes we're like, no, eso no es para mí, or maybe we're a
Mhm.
little bit submissive, or there's some topics that we're not comfortable talking about, but doing it in this collective, because I'm assuming, right, it's like in a collective communal
Mhm.
environment, then that
Yes.
helps it. Well, if they're talking about it, then maybe we should start talking about this in my family too. What
Yeah.
kind of anecdotes or, like, situations have you seen where you've seen like a complete change, right? That you're like, oh my goodness, we've seen in this amount of time how they've just flourished, and like those barriers have just kind of dissipated poco a poco.
Well, for the community work that I've done within schools, we've had in the beginning we had just a handful of parents that were part of or families that would kind of show up to our workshop. So and they would show up a little bit reserved, right? Not really wanting to participate. We have group chats and you know kind of holding back, right? That trust wasn't built.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
as we've been actively present within the community that we work for and that we're working with, we've
Mhm.
seen an abundance of growth from the schools that are participating. We've seen the students show up and volunteer. They're volunteering with us now and part of like the
Mhm.
workshops that we give. So they're feeling empowered to take
Mhm.
ownership of this too. But in the last workshop that we had, the parents just really like showed up and showed out at the workshop. And it was just amazing because we had a multitude of things. Like I said, financial awareness. We had some like social emotional learning for parenting. We had all these different things. And it was so beautiful to see them walking into the space just ready to learn, ready to, build their toolbox with everything we were giving them, and seeing them just, continue to flourish. Seeing a parent, one specific parent that we met a couple years ago when we first started in that community, and he's kind of running his own. He now has a driver's license because of the information that we were giving him. He's starting his own little business where he's doing taxi driving now. So seeing that grow through the information that they've gained, and the community that they've built has been really awesome.
So this is just great. I mean, just hearing this, and I know we've had conversations before, right? And with Navas, and that we're really trying to find these collaborations to be able to amplify this type of work and really reach more families and more people. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but what are your thoughts? What's the detriment, right, to
Mhm.
not doing so? Like, for example, again, let's go back to Florida, right? So I'm in Florida now, and we're seeing this hot mess. First off, don't come to Florida,
No, I
because
can't.
of, yeah, you can't.
I would not be safe there.
Yeah, you would not be safe there, right? Right here, right? Because of what's happening with undocumented individuals, right? And so, but what is the detriment to society, right, when you don't support, right, migrant communities and that are already part, when we're talking about DACA students, for example, they're part of our society, right? So then what happens at the family level, at the society level, at the business level? I mean, there's so many layers to this. So, in your opinion, how does it affect? And I think it's adversely affects, right? But I'd love to hear your opinion.
I think it definitely affects like multi layers and multi different like multiple different aspects of just society. We're not tapping into the brilliance of the community, and I'm not just talking about intellect, but I'm talking about like the community brilliance, like the relationship brilliance that we can also have present. We have spaces where then we have children who are not able to create financial stability for themselves, and that leads into other problems. There's no that creates health issues. It creates broken family dynamics because of the lack of support. So there's just I think there's so many different things that can be affected. I'm thinking about also like not just students with DACA, but students that don't have DACA, and how they don't have access then to some educational opportunities because unfortunately some schools don't allow students who are undocumented to apply. There's still states within the US where if you're undocumented, you can't even apply to a college. And how that mitigates the options that students have to continue to pursue a future. Um, and that can be seen also through like, scholarship opportunities or employment opportunities.
Mhm.
You don't get a sense of being able to develop wholly and being able to, become who they want to become. And I see that just building up frustration and the humanity aspect of it, where they don't get access to health, wellness, community, like all the different things that really help a person be a person.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm thinking too from a one mental wellness perspective, mental health, which you mentioned before, that constant fear,
Yes.
cannot be healthy, right? If you're constantly looking over your shoulder, constantly worried about, tomorrow, constantly worried about your loved ones, right? Your
Mhm.
loved ones too. And the opportunities that are or not, available to you and your loved ones too, because that's the thing. I don't think people understand, right? We are not an individualistic society,
No.
so then what happens to la tia and the cousin and the,
Yeah.
it's like it's
It's
really
personal. You
heavy.
feel it in your soul. Like you feel it. You take it on.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Yes, yes. And so then it just becomes like this sense of, I don't even know if this is a word, that you're weary, right? All the time. That you're, yeah, una angustia, right?
Yeah,
That,
anxiety, right? So
yes.
we talk a lot about that within our groups and when we're talking to families in our mental health spaces of the experiences that we have. And like you mentioned, that fear, right? Even if a child is a citizen, but they have parents who are undocumented, that creates a sense of insecurity. The children are worried for their parents, and they're not gonna be able to focus in school. It affects their
Hmm.
they're not gonna be able to participate full-heartedly in any extracurricular activities. Parents who are also scared of being part of a school space might not show up to school to support their children. So it has like a snowball effect on everything. And like you said, we're not an individualistic community. So even like a distant cousin that is going through these troubles and having this fear of they might disappear and be deported, or if a ticket, a driving ticket, a stop while you're driving, if
Mm.
you don't have the proper paperwork, could end up meaning you never see this family member again. Any encounter with a police officer could bring up that fear of like, I don't know what's going to happen with myself. And with DACA too, like that does provide some safety, and like we have access to work, and that safety of like you will not be removed, but it's only renewed every 2 years, and it's like, you can only plan your life in 2 year span. So
Mm.
how are you able to, even if you have access to these things, create that like, generational wealth where you're planning big purchases like home ownership or business investments, if your life literally hangs on like a 2 year thread, right? And
Yeah.
right now DACA's in court again. So it's
I
like constant fear of like this could go away, and you don't know what's going to happen. And the news, like, definitely that anxiety, that fear, that even like imposter syndrome of like feeling like I don't belong in these spaces.
Mhm.
Like I don't belong in these spaces because you don't know about other people in your same situation that have been in these spaces. So you could have all the talent and not know that yes, you belong here. You
Yeah.
take up space here. Your views, your experience are important here because this is like, this is going to help other people too.
Yeah, and it's just so wonderful to hear you, say all of these things and actually be working, to really empower youth and families, because what was done for you, right,
Yeah.
when you were in the fourth grade, and so is that how you've been able to deal with the imposter syndrome? Is just because so early on you were able, people were pouring into you and really helping you develop, your skills and your knowledge, and really showing you, right, different opportunities, and then also giving you the chance to choose exactly what you wanted to do. Is that, do you still, even though you've gone through all of this,
Oh,
trajectory, and you've in it for almost a decade and you're teaching, do you still sometimes feel apprehensive, or that, what am I doing here?
that doesn't go away. I wish it really did, but it doesn't
Mm,
go away. And I cannot like fathom just I can't even express the gratitude that I feel now in retrospect to all the educators in my life who
mm,
never stopped encouraging me or praising me for the things that I was doing well and pushing me into spaces that I didn't know were available to me.
mm.
Even educators who didn't even know that just them being women, right? I had a high school, when I went to my high school open house, there was a woman who was an ex civil engineer and she went to an Ivy League school and she was now teaching math. And I never had her as a teacher, but I admired that woman on a whole nother level because she was just a woman of color in a high school, teaching math in a high school. And I thought she's a rock star. Like
Yeah.
I was like a fangirl around her every time I was around her. And I don't think I ever told her that, but like I admired her so much. And so it just, even now I've been doing this for 10 years and there's still days where in the classroom I'm like, am I doing this right? Like, like am that feeling of like, am I doing this justice? I
Mm,
want to make sure that I'm giving back as much as I can. Because teaching is a profession that like, it drains you mind, body, and soul because you give your soul. You really do give your soul in your classroom. Because every kid just kind of, takes a little piece of you and so, even some of the experiences that I've had of presenting to other educators, of working with, math and science companies that have asked me to be part and representative, like there's still that question of like, really? Like you, me, little old me, it doesn't go away. But I'm
I-
slowly
I-
through lots of therapy. I'm learning to step into those spaces and be able to start recognizing these things in myself that other people are seeing in me.
yeah, and well, I see it in you too. And so I feel like we're so blessed,
Hmm.
fortunate to have you
Oh,
as
thank
an oh, absolutely, as an 8%er, because you know that only 8% of professionals in STEM are Latino. And then
yeah.
on top of that, you're Latina, right? So I feel like Union City, New Jersey is so lucky to have you, all
Yeah.
of those students, and you're only 10 years into it, right? So 9, right? But still a decade into it.
Yep.
So there's so much more, there's so many more lives you're going to impact, and I just feel so happy and so honored to have met you, at this juncture in your career. And I'm just excited to see you soar and to share more stories of the successes of your students, right?
Yeah.
And the families that you're touching every single day. That's only strengthening our community.
Mm.
And when I say our community, I'm just saying the USA, right? I'm not saying the Latino community, I'm just saying everybody. And thank you for pouring yourself the way you do into the new generation. It means a lot, as a mom of teenagers, right? There's so much value. And if no one's told you this, and I'm sure many people have, but I'm telling you once again, there's so much value in what you do. And I just have to tell, it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Anna. Like,
Right.
really, really, really thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sure.
Okay, so anyway, people, I don't know what else to say. Support our families.
Yes.
Okay, there's a lot of brilliance. If we don't support all communities, all children, okay, there might be the cure for diabetes might be out there, but if we're not
Yes.
support, right, and it might be in an in an undocumented family, in a
Mhm.
community that's underserved, completely marginalized and disenfranchised. And so we need to support teachers, right?
Yes.
School districts that are in it, to really advance humanity. And
Mm.
then in states where we've got some work to do, well, then we're just gonna have to do the work, right? But we know who to call to
Yeah.
find out how to do the best practices. And so I'll be calling you, Anna,
Oh, you got it. You
frequently.
got it
Yeah.
for
So
sure. Bring me my
So we,
troops.
yes, thank you so much. Well, this was a joy. Thank you so much, Ana, de verdad, con mucho cariño.
No, gracias. Oh, God, my heart is so full. Thank you for having me in this space.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Jimen Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU.